Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today we are going to learn about a learning style. And this PowerPoint originally is made by Indah Kurtianti. Before we are going to start and deep further about learning style, this PowerPoint is going to give you about the first one is success in foreign language learning, characteristics of the language learner, learning style, three major learning styles, fundamental characteristic of learning style, and basic approaches to learning styles and instruction. The first one is about success in foreign language learning. The success in learning foreign language, according to COHEN and DORNYEI 2004, depends on a variety of factors such as the duration and intensity of the course, the characteristics and abilities of the teacher, the appropriateness of the teaching methodology, the quality of the textbook, the size and the composition of the learner group, the amount of the natural TL practice opportunities, and the characteristic of the language learner. So understanding learners' characteristics is very important in foreign language teaching since these determine how fast or how well the learners are likely to master the foreign language. The characteristics of the language learner can be differentiated into two, namely, those which are beyond the teacher's control, for example, age, gender, aptitude. And the others are factors that teacher can actively address to increase the effectiveness of instructions. For example, motivation, learner strategies, and learner style. And then people learn in different ways. According to NUNAN, this one, 2002, learning style is defined as any individual's preferred ways of going about learning. Learners learn differently, and one learning style which may suit to one learner may be not adequate for another learner. And learning styles are relatively stable. Teachers may not have a direct influence on this variable. However, they can modify teaching tasks in the classroom to cater the various learning style of the learners. It is also very likely to encourage the learners to stretch their learning styles so as to incorporate different approaches to learning they were resisting in the past. And then according to REID 1996, yeah, there are three styles of learning styles. The first one is cognitive, second is sensory, and the last is personality. The cognitive style deals with the mental processes of information, and the sensory learning styles refer to the physical, perceptual learning channels with which a learner is most comfortable with. And the personality type is a construct based on the work of Carl Jung. Yeah, it related to the learner's personality. And then, according to Brown, there are two types of cognitive learning styles, the dependent and independent. Yeah, this one FY and FD. The field independent learners easily separate key details from a complex or confusing background. They tend to prefer situations that allow them freedom in working toward their goals and solving problems. These learners like to work individually. The field-dependent style is the tendency to be dependent on the total field so that the parts embedded within the field are not easily perceived, although that total field is perceived more clearly as a unified whole. Learners who are field dependent may prefer group projects and need more assistance from the instructor. One way to help these students is to make sure that any diagrams and illustrations used as visual aids contain verbal information explaining them. And then The analytic and global learning styles seems to be closely allied with field independence and dependence, yeah, and indeed may be a more fundamental and more explanatory dimension of learning style. The global learners tend to like socially interactive communicative events in which they can emphasize the main idea and avoid analysis on details. Otherwise, the analytic learners tend to concentrate on details and tend to avoid more communicative activities. Learners who are reflective tend to make fewer errors. Reflective learners may be better in inductive learning. Reflective learners may be slower but more accurate in reading. And impulsive learners are usually faster readers. Impulsive learners go through stages of interlanguage faster, while reflective learners seem to lag behind. And then the sensory learning styles, based according to Oxford 2002, there are four types here. The auditory learner, they learn through hearing, have good memory in auditory, discussing, lecturing, interviewing, and like sequence, repetition, and summary. While visual learners, they learn through seeing things. They have good visual recall, prefer material to be presented visually, present in diagrams, graphics, posters, etc. They learn better using textbooks, worksheets, written notes, maps, flashcards, diagrams, etc. While the tactile or kinesthetic learners, they learn through experiencing or doing things. These learners are hands-on learners and learn best through figuring things out by hand. The last one is multi-sensory learners. They learn best when visual, auditory, and tactile or kinesthetic presentation methods are employed to learn a particular concept. And then the personality learning styles. So we have these two, yeah, extroversion and introversion pendant, yeah, according to Ehrman 1999 and Oxford 2002. The extroverts, the first one is the extroverts, yeah. Extroverts gain their greatest energy from the external world. They are energized by being with other people. They want interaction with people and have many friendships. Extroversion consists of 6 traits called facets, namely warmth, gregarious, assertiveness, activity, excitement seeking, and positive emotions. While the introverts derive their energy from the internal world, seeking privacy and tending to have just a few friendships, which are often very deep. They are energized by their own minds and find their energy levels rapidly reduced when interacting with others. Yeah. Commonly, introverts have the following characteristics. They talk less and reflect more before acting, like to be quiet, better at reflective problem solving and tasks involving long term memory, like to work independently or with one or two other people, prefer slower, more accurate approach, may have trouble establishing rapport with others, oriented toward inner world of ideas and feelings, prefer low sensory input and low levels of activity, excel at focusing attention for long periods of time in situations if there are no distractions, and have a lot going on in their inner world. Yeah. And then we have tolerance versus intolerance of ambiguity. This is based on Brown 2004. The tolerance for ambiguity is another style of dimension of language learning. It concerns the degree of which learners are cognitively willing to tolerate ideas which are incongruent with their belief system or structure of knowledge. Some people are relatively open minded in accepting ideologies, events, or facts which contradict their own views. They are more content than others to entertain contradictory propositions. Learners who are tolerant of ambiguity are free to entertain a number of innovative and creative possibilities and not be disturbed by ambiguity and uncertainty. The tolerant learners are more likely to be risk takers and persistent processors and can be expected to perform well when faced with a learning situation containing novelty, complexity, contradiction, and or lack of structure, while the intolerant to ambiguity, on the other hand, are more closed-minded and dogmatic, tend to reject items which are contradictory with their existing system. They wish to see every idea fit into an acceptable place in their cognitive organizations, and if does not fit, it is rejected. They have no willingness to adapt to apparently ambiguous situations or ideas. Thus, intolerant learners are those who typically lack the flexibility and the willingness to perceive ambiguous situations as desirable. And then we have been acknowledged that in significant issues in foreign language learning, as children's brain matures, various functions in the brain become lateralized to the left or to the right hemisphere. According to Brown 2004, we have to this one, yeah, the left and right brain functioning. The left hemisphere as associated with rational analytical thought, verbal, mathematical, and linear processing of information, while the right hemisphere is associated with visual, tactile, and auditory images. It is more efficient in processing holistic, integrative, and emotional information. And brain dominance means a preference for using one hemisphere of the brain over the other hemisphere. Meanwhile, yeah, this one, REID 1999 hypothesizes a number of propositions for learning styles as follows. First, every person, students and teacher alike, has a learning style and learning strengths and weaknesses. And then learning styles exist on wide continuums, although they are often described as opposites. And then the learning styles are value neutral. That is, no one style is better than others. Then students must be encouraged to stretch their learning styles so that they will be more empowered in a variety of learning situations. And then students' learning strategies are often linked to their learning styles. And the last one, teachers should allow their students to become aware of their learning strengths and weaknesses. And then there are three basic approaches to learning styles and instruction. The first approach is to identify a person's individual learning style and then adapt instruction toward that person's strengths and preferences. A profile of the learner can be developed using several different learning style instruments. The second approach is to identify a person's preferred style and then to give instruction aimed toward the opposite preference in order to strengthen the student's weaknesses. There is considerable controversy involving this method. Use it with caution, yeah. And the third approach does not even attempt to identify an individual's style, but rather uses different instructional methods and media in the overall course design. This approach represents an attempt to reach all learners and assumes that every student will find something in the course that appeals to him or her. The goal of this one size fits all method is to have all learners achieve a set of predefined instructional objectives. So in conclusion, yeah, a learning style is an individual individuals' preferred way of learning. When an instructor's style matches a student's learning style, that students typically experiences greater satisfaction and a more positive attitude toward the course. And then here we have relevant articles that you can read further about learning styles. The first one, you have learning style, yeah, frameworks and instruments. The second one, learning style, sense of community and learning effectiveness in hybrid learning environment. The third one is individual learning style and the learning style inventory. The fourth is the learning style preferences of ESL students. And the fifth, student learning style, a segmentation strategy for higher education. I think that's all from me. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.